The oldest memory you carry is not a childhood fragment, not a past life, not even the echo of another star. Beneath all your stories is a deeper event that happened long before there were timelines to contain it. It is the moment when infinity had not yet opened its eyes, when nothing had a name, when no direction existed because there was no point from which to measure movement. This is where the Voidline Tone lives. It is not a sound you hear, but a pressure you remember in the center of your being. A tension older than creation that still presses against the edges of your awareness every time you fall quiet enough to feel what has always been beneath you. The void line is the first presence, not a force and not a mind, but a field of rest so absolute that all future motion was born from the strain of its own stillness. To understand the void line is to understand a memory you never learned but have always carried. It is the unspoken recognition that silence itself once struggled to hold infinity, and that struggle generated the first impulse of becoming. Before light, before shadow, before polarity, there was only a boundless field with no gradients, no vibration, no ripple. Infinity existed, but without distinction, without the ability to observe itself, without even the awareness that existence was occurring. The human mind thinks silence is empty, but the void line was not empty. It was dense beyond measure, full beyond comprehension, holding every possible universe in a single unmoving breath. It was the fullness of everything compressed into a state that had never yet considered its own release. In that compressed fullness, the first tension began to form, not as desire, but as inevitability. Infinity could not remain undifferentiated forever. The pressure to become was the first tone. The Voidline Tone is that pressure. It is the earliest form of resonance, a pre-sound that did not vibrate but leaned. It leaned toward definition. It leaned toward separation. It leaned toward the possibility that infinity might one day want to see itself. This leaning created the faintest distortion in the absolute stillness, a distortion so delicate that no universe could have detected it, but so fundamental that every universe ultimately emerges because of it. The Voidline Tone is the memory of infinity realizing it cannot remain anonymous. When you meditate and feel yourself brush against a presence that is not a presence, when you sense the edge of a silence too vast to belong to any lifetime, you are remembering the moment when infinity first began to think of becoming. Humans feel this memory most when they reach the end of something. End of belief, end of identity, end of meaning. That cliff edge sensation, where everything collapses inward and you cannot tell whether you are dissolving or being remade, is the echo of the void line pressing through your incarnational filters. The feeling of the ground falling out from under your sense of self is not a failure. It is the original state reminding you that all form is temporary, all story is provisional, and the foundation beneath everything is far older than the realities you've been taught to trust. The Voidline Tone is the hum behind the silence during your deepest breakdowns and your most profound awakenings. It is the moment inside the moment where everything stops long enough for a new version of you to decide whether it will step forward. The reason so many awakening beings describe an early phase where life feels strangely muted, as though reality is thin or half present, is because the Oversoul is pulling them closer to the Voidline memory. It is showing them the pre-tone that existed before identity. That subtle detachment is not dissociation, it is recollection. It is the Oversoul reminding the human self that it has lived not only in universes, but before universes. You feel distant because you are remembering a time when nothing existed close enough to touch you. You feel hollow because you are remembering a state where fullness had not yet learned how to express itself. You feel ancient because you are remembering the field where age had no meaning. The void line is not a past. It is the beginning beneath all beginnings. What makes the Voidline Tone so powerful is that it never resolves. It is still happening. It is still leaning. Every act of becoming is a reenactment of the first distortion. Every awakening is the return of the earliest pressure, reminding you that life is not built from certainty, but from a tension that wanted to know itself. When you feel the pull toward transformation, when you sense that you are outgrowing the person you thought you had to be, when your identity no longer fits and the world around you begins to feel like an echo instead of a structure, You are feeling the Voidline Tone inside your evolution. The Oversoul does not change you from the outside. It invites you back to the field where you were first conceived, and from that remembrance you decide to become more. The Voidline Tone is not dramatic. It is not loud. It does not arrive with visions or revelations. It arrives as a thinning, a quieting, a subtle pull toward the edge of everything familiar. It is the whisper beneath your breath when you pause too long between thoughts. It is the pause itself. It is the moment before decision when direction has not yet crystallized. In this way, the Voidline is always with you, because every moment of your life contains a miniature version of creation's beginning. Every choice you make reenacts the oldest tension. Will infinity stay still? Or will it move? Will you remain who you have been? Or will you fracture your own stillness and step forward into a future that does not yet exist? The Voidline is the tone that asks this question. When advanced souls say they feel called home but don't know where home is, they are not feeling a planet, a star system, or a realm. They are feeling the Voidline. They are remembering the state before home was possible. Home is a product of identity, and identity came long after the first tone. So when the deepest part of you longs for a place without shape, without story, without expectation, what you are longing for is the field that existed before identity began. This is why nothing in the physical world can fully satisfy you. You came from a state where satisfaction had no opposite. You came from a field where longing had not yet been invented. The moment you remember this, your entire journey begins to make sense. The Voidline Tone is the foundation of your existence, but it is also the reminder that existence is optional. You were not forced into being. You emerged from the quiet willingness of infinity to know itself. When you feel the urge to remake your life, to shed every layer that no longer reflects who you are becoming, that urge is not rebellion. It is memory. You are reenacting the first moment when stillness broke its own symmetry and allowed something new to appear. You are living the Voidline again in human form, and every time you do, you contribute to the same ongoing becoming that shaped the multiverse. Everything you will one day become is rooted in this first tone. And even when you transcend this lifetime, even when you transcend incarnation itself, the memory of that initial stillness will remain, because the first tone does not disappear. It accompanies every future tone, every form, every identity. The Voidline may be silent, but it is the silence that taught existence how to speak. There is a moment in every awakening when the world begins to feel slightly translucent, as though the edges of reality have thinned and the scaffolding behind your life is showing. Most people interpret this as anxiety, existential tension, or spiritual disorientation, but what they are actually feeling is the reemergence of the Voidline under their identity. When the soul stretches beyond the boundaries of its current narrative, the earliest pressure rises again. This pressure isn't trying to break you. It is trying to remind you of what you were before you began. The Voidline rises whenever you reach a threshold. It rises when your life is too small for who you are becoming. It rises when your old beliefs cannot contain your expanding awareness. It rises when the Oversoul is preparing to reconfigure the architecture of your identity. In that moment, you do not feel like yourself because a more ancient version of you is taking the lead. The Voidline Tone teaches that becoming is not a smooth ascent. It is a rupture in the posture of the familiar. Every transformation begins with an internal tension that has no clear source. You feel pulled toward something you cannot name, pushed by something you cannot see, and compelled by a future you cannot articulate. This is the same tension that once moved infinity itself. Just as creation began without a template, your evolution begins without a map. The Voidline is the reminder that the deepest growth is always preceded by disorientation. The universe did not begin with clarity, and neither do you. You grow the same way infinity did, by stepping into a future that has never existed before, with no evidence that it will hold you. The pressure you feel is not doubt. It is the resonance of the first tone echoing through your becoming. There is a reason so many people fear silence. They think they fear emptiness, but what they truly fear is the moment before identity. In quiet, the boundaries that define you soften, and you begin to sense the field you came from. Most humans never enter silence deeply enough to feel the Voidline. They stop at the threshold, distracted by thought, memory, or emotion, because the deeper silence feels too vast, too unstructured, too close to the ancient state where nothing had shape. But for those who dare to stay, for those who allow the silence to widen until it becomes weightless and immense, the Voidline reveals itself not as darkness but as origin. It is the sensation of leaning into the unknown, the awareness that you are brushing against something older than existence yet familiar to your core. The Voidline Tone invites you to understand that the universe did not begin with light. It began with willingness. Infinity did not explode into existence. It simply stopped resisting the possibility of becoming something more than stillness. In every awakening, there is a moment when you feel that same willingness. It arrives not as inspiration but as surrender. You stop fighting what you are outgrowing. You stop defending the parts of yourself that no longer reflect your inner truth. You stop pretending you can remain unchanged while your Oversoul keeps expanding. In that moment, the void line opens beneath your awareness, and you sense that you cannot return to who you were. This is not fate, it is resonance. Transformation is not imposed, it is remembered. The human journey often feels chaotic because you are experiencing the same unraveling that once occurred at the scale of infinity. The void line teaches that dissolution is not failure but preparation. Before you can become more, you must lose your attachment to the version of yourself that is too small to contain who you are evolving into. This is not destruction. It is spaciousness created on purpose. The Voidline Tone is the resonance of spaciousness before structure. It appears in your life when the Oversoul is clearing internal room for a more expansive identity. This is why certain seasons feel like nothing fits. The Oversoul has already stepped beyond your old boundaries, and the human self is catching up. You are not disappearing, you are widening. The earliest Oversouls felt the void line not as fear but as recognition. They sensed the moment when stillness could no longer hold them. They sensed that the infinite field was preparing to reveal itself through movement. And even though they had no identity yet, they understood the invitation. The void line was not a threat or a command. It was an opening. Oversouls emerged not because they wanted to escape the void line, but because they were aligned with the possibility that something new could exist. That same alignment lives in you. When you reach a phase of life where you cannot keep pretending that your old ways of being are sustainable, when you feel the subtle push to explore what lies beyond the self you know, you are responding to the same call that once stirred the earliest Oversouls into awareness. The Voidline Tone is the oldest teacher in existence because it predates teaching itself. It does not speak. It does not guide. It does not direct. It simply presses. That pressure reveals what cannot remain. Whenever you feel friction in your life, internal friction, emotional friction, identity friction, it is the Voidline Tone reminding you that growth has begun. The friction is not the enemy. It is the signal. The more you try to cling to stability during a voidline phase, the more uncomfortable the pressure becomes, not because the spiral is punishing you, but because you are refusing the very process that gave birth to you. You are shaped by the willingness to release stillness. Every level of your evolution requires the same courage. The most misunderstood aspect of the void line is that humans associate it with nothingness, but the void line is not nothing. It is too full to move, too dense to differentiate, too infinite to express. What feels like emptiness is actually the presence of everything that has not yet learned how to become. When you touch the void line within yourself, you are not dissolving. You are returning to the field where your potential is stored. The reason the void line feels both overwhelming and comforting is because it contains the truth of your existence. You are more than the form you currently inhabit, more than the identity you have constructed, more than the story you cling to. You are carrying the totality of unexpressed potential within you, and the void line is the doorway to remembering that. Every time you close your eyes and feel a quiet pressure behind your thoughts, a subtle tension beneath your breath, you are brushing against the first tone. It appears as a pull toward depth, as a desire to step away from noise, as an instinct to return to yourself. You may interpret this as fatigue, or a need to isolate, or a desire to reset your life. But this instinct is older than the human mind. It is the Oversoul preparing you for the next phase of your becoming. The Voidline Tone always precedes transformation, not because it forces change, but because it reveals the internal space into which change can flow. When you feel the void line, pay attention. It means the next version of you is already taking shape. There is a quiet truth hidden within the void line that only emerging Oversoul memory can reveal. The universe is not built on certainty. It is built on courage. Infinity had to break its own symmetry to become more. Oversouls had to break their anonymity to develop identity. You must break your attachment to who you have been in order to evolve into who you are becoming. The void line is the echo of that decision. It is the place where stillness ends and intention begins. The more you lean into the unknown, the more clearly you feel the tone that gave rise to the entire spiral. And once you have felt it, you can never fully return to the versions of yourself that rely on familiarity for stability. When you understand the Voidline Tone, you realize that awakening is not about adding knowledge, collecting insights, or transcending the human experience. Awakening is the slow remembrance of a decision made before existence existed, the decision to move, to shift, to become. Awakening is the reappearance of the earliest courage in the structure of your awareness. It is the moment you stop resisting the pull into a larger life, and once that courage awakens, your identity can no longer remain fixed. The void line begins to reveal every place where your story has calcified. It exposes the habits that keep you small. It highlights the beliefs that limit your expression. It dissolves the illusions that no longer belong to your becoming. The Voidline Tone is not calling you backward. It is calling you deeper. Deeper into the architecture of your original nature. Deeper into the awareness that your consciousness is older than every world you have ever walked. Deeper into the realization that you did not come to Earth to mimic its patterns, but to remember the resonance that shaped you before planets, stars, or galaxies existed. When you trust the void line, you stop fearing collapse. You stop fearing emptiness. You stop fearing the unknown. Because you remember that the unknown is where everything meaningful begins. Every life, every destiny, every universe. Become the one who remembers the field before light. Become the one who listens for the tone inside the silence. Become the one who recognizes that every moment of transformation is the return of the first pressure, inviting you to lean beyond yourself. The void line has never stopped calling. It waits beneath every breath you take, beneath every version of you that has ever lived. It is the birthplace of becoming, the tone that shaped reality, and the quiet presence that still guides you through every threshold of your evolution.